Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out on a reasonably hot. I think our real competition, Sunday in Augusta. I have watched the Masters on Sunday most of my adult life. And I understand it's a great pairing today with Rory McIlroy and Brian DeChambeau head to head, right? You have to use the microphone. Oh, well, here. It needs a green light. Come on, Jeffrey. This isn't hard.
Thanks, Mom.
Oh, you're welcome. Anyway, so we may have some competition from Sunday at Augusta, but that's okay.
Plus 100 degrees.
It is not. It's only 90.
To me, it's 100 degrees.
I see. Come on. You live in Mykonos half of the year. It's got to be hotter there.
But there's a big wind. It's the island of the winds, too.
I see. Well, anyway, our guest today is Jeffrey Siger. Jeffrey spelled correctly. After all these years, I finally learned Jeffrey. I, as a victim of auto-typing, have misspelled his first name almost our entire acquaintance, haven't I?
I thought you didn't love me anymore when you started to spell it correctly.
Jeffrey Deaver just left a
Yes.
too big of a mark on me. Anyway, this is, I've just confirmed, the 14th book with Chief Inspector Andreas Kaldis, whom we first met in Murder in Mykonos, when Jeffrey unceasingly battered me to read it because it had been published in Greece and he was looking for an American publisher. And it was an interesting looking paperback. Did it have a little church on the cover?
Yes, it did.
Had a little church on the cover. And so finally I gave in and I read it and I absolutely loved it. So that began our long professional association.
And I love and relish every moment of it. It's on the record.
Okay, right. But when we sold Poison Pen Press in 2019, Jeffrey then has acquired a new editorial staff. And the good news is that from there, he's gone to yet another publisher, which is based in England, in the UK, which means that you're finally reaching an international market. Finally. And not only is that great for your books and for your international readers, but I think I dimly remember there's some conversation about potentially television or film coverage, or is that one of those things you can't talk about yet?
I can talk about it. That won't make it happen, but I can talk about it.
Okay,
No, there is a group that has been loyally trying to keep the rights that I gave them before they exercise an option to put this into a construction for film. We'll see what happens. The option runs through September. It runs through August. And if they put the money up, they get it. If they don't put the money up, you don't get it. So we'll see what happens.
Well, you can always try selling it again.
Oh, there's several people looking behind that who want to do it. So it's fun. It's
I'm going
fun.
to turn my phone off is the reason I'm being rude here. I think it's really stupid if me, the interviewer, is the one whose phone rings during the middle of all this. So I always forget to do that. Right. On. Yay. Okay. I think myself it would make marvelous television. And, the cost of doing historicals is very high because of, the costuming and all the rest of it. But filming in Greece can't actually, and you'd really have to film it, I think, on location in order to get any sense of authenticity, don't you?
There's a large interest in filming in Greece right now. Some of the shows have already been popularized. And there's new films being done over there all the time. So it certainly is a place to do it. And we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun. That's the most important thing. It'll be fun.
Well, you've been doing this for fun. Like me, Jeffrey retired from practicing law and decided that he would do something more fun, right?
Absolutely. It's been 20 years of fun and joy.
I'm at 35. Ha! But anyhow, the part of the, I don't want to say conceit, that's the wrong word. Part of the, what is the word I want?
Depends what the subject's going to be.
I have to think about this for a minute. Concept. All right, we're going to go with concept. Part of the concept of this series is that Chief Inspector Kaldis we originally met him on Mykonos. He has moved to Athens, but that we are going to be in a different and storied part of Greece in every book. So we've been to Patmos and Delphi. The second book, Assassins in Athens, I still think is one of the great thriller openers. It's like a 30-page rocket of a chapter. It's brilliant. Where else have we been? We've been...
Patmos.
I said that one.
Tinos.
Right.
Okay. Delphi.
Okay.
Sparta.
Thank you.
You're testing my memory, aren't you?
I am.
Okay. the Aegean April really took place on Lesbos or
Right.
Mytilene. That was picked as one of the best books of the year by Library Journal.
It was.
And let me see. After that, we've got
Santorini.
Santorini, of course. We have Naxos.
Okay.
We have Icaria.
I loved Icaria. I thought that was one of your best books.
And we now have the Peloponnese. This is the Western Peloponnese, and it starts off down by the point, which is considered by some to be the entrance to Hades, and it goes up along the Messenian Gulf, up and around and around and around that whole beautiful area, and ends up at Navarino. Costa Navarino is considered now one of the best resorts in the world for golfers.
I was going to say, you've got
Is
a
it
killer golf community in this book, right? Perfect for today, right? We were just talking about Sunday at Augusta, the Masters, but this is a book where the golf course is a major role.
Yeah, it is. And you have so many possibilities in Greece. I mean, it's hard not to be inspired. I mean, you're talking about the place which is where it's east meets west in that spot. I can't think of any other democracy that is closer to the conflict areas of the world than Greece. It's been that way for history. And so there's lots to be said. And having friendships as I do among various politicians and business people, and the fact that I refuse to have conversations with them in Greek because I want them to understand me, is we have it in English. And when they're talking to me about certain events that they shouldn't be talking about, but they've had enough to drink, that they will talk about it, they will say something like, oh, well, you know, we try now to find the right word. And since English is not their first language, they're expressing, instead of saying we appropriated, they say, oh, we stole it. There's things like that. I mean, small. Those people are no longer in power. They're all gone. There's nobody around like that anymore in Greece.
Well, Jeffrey certainly convinced me there's a strong bar culture in Mykonos and other places in Greece where you get to hear things like this in the midnight hour. I think one of Jeffrey's greatest strengths as an author is his ability to write about landscapes. I mean, you really do evoke, and Greece has a lot of different landscapes, you know, discrete, spelled correctly, C-R-E-T-E. And you've done such a great job. I remember Sparta, which I've not been to. I've been to other parts of Greece and the Greek islands, but I was so struck by your description of the geography, therefore the culture of Sparta, which really takes you all the way back to, you know, classical Greece when the Spartans stood strong.
It's funny you say that. My books are really known for the locales and the description of it. And that is the part of writing I find the most difficult. Most people have trouble with dialogue. Dialogue comes to me like that. It just is, I become that person, and I am speaking as that person. I have to really labor over the descriptions because I don't want it to sound like a travel log, and I don't want it to sound like getting carried away, and I took 3 steps to the right, 4 steps to the left, up, down. So I really try to hone it down to what will be the essence of that particular place. And so far, I've been lucky. And my wife speaks Greek fluently. And when we go to these places, people love her. They don't love me, they love her. And so she gets all of these people opening up and saying little secrets. And that's the thing that really has helped me. I mean, you talked about Sparta. In connection with that, I was over in the Peloponnesus at a beautiful town, and we're sitting at a taverna chatting, and they were pleased that she spoke Greek. And I was trying to come up with things to talk about in the context of the situation about a funeral. And so she said, could you tell me something in this area? And so he said, oh, it's very simple. We hold, and then we pour a bottle of wine over the body, and then we go, whoa, wait a minute, hold on here a second. And she told me, and he tells me, yeah, that's the way we do it. We do it this way everywhere. And I said, I didn't want to tell him that's not true. And so there it is. I bring it back. I check it out with somebody, and they said, no, we never heard of that tradition. Maybe over there. I put it in a book, and people said, how did you know that?
You know what? Alcohol is a terrific preservative for a corpse. When Lord Nelson was killed at Trafalgar, they sent him home in a barrel of, what was it? I'm trying to remember whether it was rum, I think. But anyway, it is, I'm serious, you know, it's a great embalming thing, so I'm not at all surprised that they would pour wine over the corpse.
There are a lot of people with livers to attest to that, too, in Mykonos.
Is it Retsina? Then it would really, that's like, you know, would create sort of a Lysol different flavor really, to the whole thing.
It's really ouzo and Sapporo, which is
So now it's going to smell like licorice and not turpentine.
yes, but that's very potent. It's like grappa. It's like grappa.
I've tried to drink Retsina. I just cannot
That's
do
an
it.
acquired taste.
It has to be like frozen. You know, if
You could test it out by doing some of the household detergents that you have. It has a good taste like
Sorry.
that. It's
I'm
akin to
so, maybe Pine Sol is closer
Pine
than Lysol.
Pine Sol is the best one.
Yeah,
Pine
you're
Sol is
right.
the best one. But the thing about it is that you have to decide that you're going to be patient with it, because you can get Racinas over in Greece, which are very good, but it's hard to find them here.
Well, no, I've drunk them there,
Okay.
and I still didn't like them. Okay, so
You're up on that. You got that right. I'm not going to argue.
there we are. So
You're
Jeffrey,
not dead yet after drinking that way either.
no, I'm still going strong. So Jeffrey, being a lawyer, has a lot of experience, if not actually defending criminals, at least, some familiarity with the criminal justice system, and also the really awful things that people can get up to. And so I've always thought your plots were really, believable. Sometimes you have to strain when you're reading crime fiction to think, could that possibly happen? But you also have a real understanding of the politics of Greece.
I tell you, people, that's been pointed out before. I listen to things. I feel like if I walk into a room and I see you there with a shoe on your ear, something like that, I may not know where that shoe goes, but I know it doesn't belong there, so I point that out. People say, "How did you know that you have a shoe on the ear?" I said, "Well, I'm a genius, The truth is, that's how I observe these things, and I've been there enough years, and they really incorporate me as like the American Miconiati. They keep me there. They're friendly. It's because of friendships I've had over the years and situations, so that they will open up to me and tell me things that they wouldn't otherwise tell people. So I get that in my mind and I run with it. From my experience as a lawyer, I was a Wall Street lawyer, but I also did a lot of pro bono activities. One was I was investigating suicides in the New York City jails. That was a rather eye-opener, especially you saw the way they did it and what they did. And I was friendly with correction officers. They introduced me to different people and different ideas. And you start to get a feeling for people that it doesn't take many of those people, those character traits, to work into your book that's going to say, wow, that can't be true, but it is true. There's a lot of things happening in government today you can't believe is true, but it is true. And that's what you do. You point it out.
So Greece being a tourist place and kind of an international crossroads, sometimes we get plots where we have like evil Russians or, people from other countries, which I think, that expands your possibilities there when you are. So we've been back to Mykonos on purpose for, was it 2 more? 3 more. But additionally, Greece being a crossroads, it's easy for you to come up with plots where there are a lot of players outside Greece. So you had to move Andreas from being the police chief in Mykonos, which is where we met him, to being chief inspector in Athens, where he has a much wider remit, right?
Yes, he has essentially a remit. He is to investigate all questions of corruption or significant crimes. He has a lot of leeway, which makes this definitely fiction. He has a lot of leeway in what he chooses to handle. But I've been exposed to the higher level of Athenian society for many years, and so I know how they work. His wife is, by the way, a part of that in the book, and that plays a big role. So when I talk about these things, people say, "I can't be." People who are in the know say, "Yes, certainly can be." So I owe a lot to my friends, people who would introduce me to do this. And once someone realizes that you're a writer and someone they can trust or whatever, they'll open up to you. It's really a matter of you maintaining that confidence. And another thing you do, when you have something, you never take cheap shots. If you want to wreck a relationship, take a cheap shot on somebody. They don't want to hear it. The fact that I say this is a very corrupt place, a very corrupt situation, no one argues about that. But I don't find a way to turn it into something which is other than the truth. And that's the key to
more people followed you at the moment. That would be a truly great thing. So, Not Dead Yet. Earlier titles incorporated the place. So it was like Athens, Assassins in Athens, or
Assassins of Athens,
Sons of
Targetinos,
Sparta,
Sons
or
of
whatever.
Sparta.
But a couple of books ago, you discarded that, so Not Dead Yet. Maybe it was going to be hard to find something to rhyme with or to go with Peloponnese, but could have been Peril and Peloponnese, right?
Honestly, there's a title of a book here that I loved. I thought it was really right on the point, right on the mark. It was called The Mykonos Mob, which is what Mykonos has evolved to right now. But my new publisher decided they didn't like that title, so they switched to Island of Secrets. And then they didn't want any more of this alliteration, so that's why this changed. So I was able to come up with these books, or they came up with the book titles.
Right, and the good news is that his new publisher is going to reboot the series by bringing it back in paperback, the earlier books. So that'll be great, because I do think, as we said, it's book 14, but it's really fun. You don't have to have read any of them to read this book, but it's wonderful if you can go back and read the series from the beginning. So the mystery in every book is complete and it's solved, but overall, the story of the characters keeps going on.
Right, and the thing that I find is most interesting to me is that people will pick up a book. Let's say I'd say the place to start is always with the newest book. This one, they're, by the way, saying is the best ever, which is it's always better to hear than Jeffrey, what happened to you. So this you start with this book, and then you can go back. And I cannot tell you the number of people I'm getting calls or notes from saying that's what they did. They've read straight through the whole books, a whole series after they read one of the books. And I know I'm an overnight succession. No, I don't think success is what we want to say. And all that makes one thing very important to me. I wanted when I decided to stop practicing law to fall back to the thing I always loved, something I thought I was going to be, in fact, when I was in high school. But I was discouraged because one of the kids in my English class, who I played on the football team with, read a little paper that he had written in English. And when he wrote that, and I read it, and he read it, and I listened to it, I said, my God, I'm wasting my time thinking I'll be a writer. This guy's fantastic. Well, he turned out to be fantastic. He turned out to be John Edgar Wideman, who was one of America's #1 writers. So John cost me in my career. I had become a lawyer and be able to have made enough money to actually be a struggling writer.
Think about me, who made enough money to become a successful bookseller. There you are. It all works out.
All this. Right. It's finished. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
Well, let's talk about Not Dead Yet. And we've seen a lot of things about the airline industry recently. There have been a number of crashes, poor maintenance. Gosh, that was so sad what happened to those people. But, I thought to myself when I read the New York Times article today about the helicopter that dropped the Spanish family and the pilot into the Hudson, that the Spanish guy didn't do his homework, because if you'd actually looked up that company, you would have seen it had a really sad history of, defaulting, poor maintenance, all the rest of it. I would never have agreed to go on a helicopter tour with that particular company. But in any case, your book involves a spectacular airline crash at the very beginning. So tell us about it.
Well, this private plane goes down in the deepest part of the Mediterranean, and it is presumed that all of the survivors are dead, except, in fact, this is interesting, and this will answer the question in a very different way than most people would answer the question. The media had declared him dead a week ago, yet there he was, battered, bruised, tattered clothed, and shoeless, plodding bear-like along a rugged Mediterranean shoreline, head down and oblivious to the pain inflicted upon his naked feet by the sharp rocks. The breezy late summer afternoon turned slightly chilly once the sun had completed its ritual deep orange setting, but the crisp, sea-scented air and starlight-filled sky drove him on until he found the body. He stood stiff-backed and stared, then lay down beside her and cried. That was his wife. That's the premise for the book, which is what happened? How did this all occur? How did it happen this way? And it takes Chief Inspector Caldas and his crew into a whole different level, because this person who went down happens to be a mega criminal. He's escaped all sorts of issues and efforts to put him away. And now, with him he became comatose as a result of this, the shock. He's in a hospital bed. Chief Inspector Caldas knows that once this guy comes around, he is going to be out for vengeance. Who had killed his wife? What had happened? How did this occur? And as it evolves, Chief Inspector Carter's own wife is tied into this possibility. And so he has to try to solve this to be able to protect his family. That's the premise for this. How it gets there and how he solves it involves unique thinking and some say ingenious efforts to get to the person who can best convey this. It creates new characters, new individuals, new villains, new heroes. I love them all. And I am so pleased that so many reviewers have said they love these same characters.
Right. Well, I mean, without Maggie, the chief inspector would seldom, well, he would have more trouble running his office and doing his job if it weren't for, we all know that it's really women who run the world, right? So, sorry.
No argument there for me.
No, and I'm going to make a side here and say that for years, I was B1 in Jeffrey's life, Barbara number 1. And then he married somebody named Barbara, and I have been demoted to B2. Now, I agree to that, but I have to say every once in a while, I think, wait. I know, but it's true, right? It is true, right? Right. Well, anyway, I've been generous about it because I do think she should be Barbara number 1 in your life, if not in the world, right? But Maggie's really important, and Maggie has a partner who is an older, really connected, very experienced member of the Athenian law enforcement. Well,
he's the chief homicide investigator.
Right. And therefore, he can help Andreas do things that Andreas on his own probably can't. So he's a great character. So the two of them are sterling. Now, you had a subordinate to Andreas who, was it in
Yanni.
In Sparta? Which book was it that Yanni really came?
Yeah.
Was it Sparta?
Yeah, Sons of Sparta is really where he really emerged.
Right.
He was with Andreas from the beginning in Murder in Mykonos. He was a wise-ass young rookie who Andreas had to put in his place, and they became fast friends.
Yeah, but I mean, he was really, in many ways, the central character in Sons of Sparta. And I like that some of the other characters really become, I mean, Andreas is always there, but you do give other people a chance to run the show.
Even Maggie. Maggie's book was in Icaria. That was book One Last Chance. That was her. And that, by the way, that tied into COVID in a reflective way, because writing a book about COVID wasn't what I desired to do during COVID, but that gave her the chance to evolve.
So in this book, with this horrible plane crash, you are always in the dark about, along with Andreas, about what happened. Why did the plane go down? What happened afterward? Why is the wife on the beach and her husband crying next to her instead of at the bottom of not the Mediterranean, would have been the Aegean Sea, wouldn't it? The Ionian Sea. Okay, right. I know there are all these little, you dice up that body of water into many little things.
Right by Hades is sort of where
right.
the Ionian and Aegean meet.
Yep. Anyway, there's not much more we can say about it because we'd absolutely ruin it. Jeffrey is correct in saying that people have loved it. He got a glowing review in Kirkus, if I remember. Was it in published? A book list, was it? Okay. But anyway, many people have responded hugely to this. So sometimes a person can write a number of books and then for no particular reason, one really sparks everything. I mean, Larry Block, I don't even remember how many books Larry Block wrote before he suddenly turned into this, like iconic writer. It happens a lot.
Whatever I have, I owe to Barbara.
Well, that's true at the beginning, but now you have
a number.
You have a right, but now you have a new professional team, and they seem to be doing a really good job.
Yeah, they are very good. They're very good. I'm
So-
very pleased. Again, you suggested that.
I did, right, because I didn't want Andreas and all of his family to go away. I mean, that's the thing, is you get really, attached to them, and I've actually steered any number of authors into different publishers when it appeared that the one that had been working with them had lost interest, which happens more often than one would wish, right? But I don't like the story and the characters to die, so It's purely selfish on my part. I get to go on reading about Andreas and everybody.
This person is a legend in the mystery field. She really is. And when it comes to friends of mine who talk about where they want to come and what they want to do, it's here. They really do. They feel that way. It's true.
Oh, thank you. So I love the virtual audience. Thank you so much. If you have questions, you can address them, and Pat will come out and tell us what they are. But meantime, anybody here have a question? High school person, do you have something you'd like to ask? Okay. Anybody else?
Go for it.
I always have a question to authors. How did you come up with the name for your protagonist?
Interesting you say that, because my friend in Greece, my best friend in Greece, his first name was Andreas. My best friend in the U.S., his last name was Kelidis, but I didn't want to use his last name because I wasn't sure where this was going, so I changed it to Kaldis. And you didn't mention the fact that somebody, it's Cassandra, and so many of my things come to pass. And I forget which book it was, but I get this message from this woman saying, I think I'm related to Andreas. And I said, I write back, I said, okay. And she said, I have a pastry shop in Piraeus, and I'm pretty sure he's related to me because our name is Kaldis. And I wrote back, I said, I'm sure he longs to see you again. She laughed. She says, we're putting together a new shop. I didn't realize these are big people in Piraeus. We're putting together a new shop, and we're going to have more than just baked goods. We're trying to figure out what to have. And I just threw out and we can't figure a name for it. So I threw out the name, which I beg you, by the way, forget. I think it was, Meats and Eats. And she laughed. She writes me a note about a week later that the whole family loves that name. They're going to use it. And anytime I want to eat to go there. I said, no, thank you. I'm on a diet. But it was phenomenal. I mean, that's how the name came to be, and there's people out there doing it. And there was also, at that time, my publisher in Greece, it was Ekaterina Lalaouni from the Lalaunis family. And she told me that she had attended a party somewhere, and there was the head of the police force in the area where Andreas is living in Greece. His name was Andreas Kaldis. She couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe it. She called me that night, which was 7 hours ahead. It was really early. I couldn't believe it. And that's what happens.
There's all kinds of ways people do that. We've had authors, I'm trying to remember who it is. He reads the names of European soccer teams, and then he'll take like a first name from one and another from another. Other people look at obituaries. Oftentimes they pair up different names, not taking the whole name, but parts of the name and the whole bit. And I think all of us have a certain amount of emotional freight we assign to names. I mean, I won't specify one that I particularly dislike, and it may be based upon somebody we knew or some past experience or something. And so I think that names have emotional weight for authors. They certainly do for readers. The other thing you have to be careful of, though, as we know in any book, is you can't have too many names that sound alike. So you really don't want to have two guys named James, or even James and John as a general rule. It's confusing for the reader.
It absolutely is. I found that for the names, oftentimes the character tells me what their name is. It just does. It wants to be this. And with Greek names, you can fool around and get some funny things out of it. But they're there. I sit there and I decide, what am I going to do? And then bang, the name just jumps out from the character. It's difficult, though, to come up in Greece. First of all, in Greece, everybody's named Yorgo Cheese. I mean, there's only 5 names, it seems, in Greece. It's not true. But you hear that, so you're going to run up against it, and then you put in an esoteric one, and people say, who's not going to call their child that name?
The most interesting one I ever had was when I was editing a long series of books set in the reign of Justinian. So we're in 6th century Byzantium. And the names just didn't feel right to me, but I didn't really know why. And Laurie King, the author of the Mary Russell Sherlock Holmes books, her husband he's now deceased, a noted religious scholar. So I wrote to Laurie and I said, here's a whole bunch of names. I said, run them by can't even think of his name at the moment. Anyway, run him by and see what he likes. So he was great. He sent me back a whole list of actual names of that period that would work.
Wow.
So they are important. I think they really are. It's hard for readers to attach to a character where the name puts them off.
True. You want to make sure the name does mean something that contributes to the case. Like if you call somebody Marilyn Monroe, it's not. It's going to bring all sorts of subliminal things to it. Well, right now, I'm working on a new series, which the name. I don't think I'm going to give it a name, and I think it'll work, because it just seems it's up there. There's so many meanings to it. By the way, Caldas is still playing. I'm working on a new Caldas, but I am doing I'm like sort of recharging my batteries by doing this particular one that I've been meaning to write for about 5-6 years. But that name, I just couldn't find the right name that's going to work, and so I found a way to do it. We'll see what happens.
That's wonderful. So the other things you have to be careful about are like phone numbers. And, if you put real ones in, it can be a problem. Greg Hurwitz, who writes a wonderful series called Orphan X, and I absolutely love them. And part of the deal with Orphan X is he has an 800 number that people can call and ask for his help. So he went ahead and, registered for the 800 number, and there's a recording now that said when you call it says, I'm Evan, tell me what help you need, which I think is that's one solution to it. Years ago, an author I was very fond of wrote a book, and at some point there's a vehicle stranded in the New Mexican desert, and they figure out whose it is by the license plate. So the license plate, and when I read it, I thought, that's really familiar. So I went out in the garage and I looked, and sure enough, it was my own license plate. And I wrote to her and I said, Judy, and she said, well, I knew you wouldn't mind, she said, and it's hard to make one up. But so there are all kinds of pitfalls, in terms of if somebody really has that name, if, you make up a restaurant and it's a real one somewhere, if you put in a phone number and it belongs to somebody, you have to really think about stuff like that.
Well, even with Greg Hurwitz's choice of having the 800, and this is to help people who are orphans. Okay. If someone calls and is serious and there's no return call, I'm talking as a lawyer.
That's the lawyer in you going,
exactly
wait, Greg,
right.
you
That
may
is
have
the
exposed
lawyer.
yourself.
That's exactly
But I still think it's a really clever
Yeah,
idea.
I think it is too. I
Right.
think it is too.
Yeah, that's why there are disclaimers in books about, the characters aren't real and, other stuff. But I don't know how well insulated they are. Fortunately, we've never been sued as a publisher, and now we can't be. Because,
No, you're fine.
Penguin Random House will have to bear the weight of any lawsuit that attacks us, so too bad.
I don't think there's a risk of that.
No, I don't either. Did anybody else have a question? You there in the back, sir, in the red chair?
I'm actually leaving. I'm going to stay at the Gatsby next to the Acropolis. On Saturday we fly out, and Easter Sunday I'll be in Athens.
Oh, that'll be fantastic.
Someone told me to read your books.
Well,
And they were right.
The Scottsdale Library loves you, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, a lot of your books. The Pietro, who in what was it, Santorini, the Caesars of Santorini.
Yes.
How many books was he in, or was he just in that one book?
You mean Petro, who was assistant? He was just in that one book. I tell you what, that's a difficult thing to decide. My crew expands. It continues to expand, and you get too many characters, and everybody wants their character in it. Becomes a problem. He was somebody that I was thinking of bringing back. He's happily married to the woman who owned the restaurant, and I was thinking of bringing him back. But then I got other characters as well. But you really gave a smile to me, because what you just said was something. I was one character I really thought I should bring back. Well, thank you, and enjoy Athens. Easter is great.
So better to marry off a character than just kill him.
That depends on who you marry.
I know. Well, but it is true, It gets even more complicated if there are like dogs involved, because then everybody wants. Dogs are immortal in fiction. Dogs do not age like anything else, right?
In Devil of Delphi,
Right.
there was a scene. It opens up with this really great killer character, where he picks up he's standing hitchhiking with a dog, holding a little dog, and he brings the dog and gets it ride, the guy picks him up and gets a ride, and then you see that the person who was carrying the dog had butchered and killed the guy who picked him up. That's part of the story. And then he gets and leaves. And as I'm reading it, I'm looking at the edits. I said, wait a minute, where's the dog? And so I had to go back and rewrite it to have it, and just a line that he drove past where he found the dog and put it down and kept on his way back to Athens. I had to do that. Otherwise, I was going to be criticized, and justly so, for neglecting the poor little pup.
That's right. No dogs die in
dogs
crime
die,
fiction,
right.
that's for sure, right? Anyone else? Pat, are there any questions online? As he emerges from the media room.
Coming from the sorry about that. Yeah, so there's a little bit of concern about your license tag getting published. Did you have to change that, Barbara?
Oh, thank you. No, it's an old license plate, no longer mine, on an old car. But, that's an interesting thought. Maybe I would have been like on, some wanted list or something. No, it's fine.
Oh, okay, good. Also, Noel King was
Noel, well, that's
Noel,
it. Laurie's
yeah.
husband, right?
Laurie's husband.
He was a wonderful man. He really was. He was an incredible eccentric. And I first met him at St. Hilda's College in Oxford, where Laurie and I were at a crime conference. And I had never, when I was an undergraduate at Stanford, it was so long ago, girls didn't get to be Rhodes Scholars, and I sulked about that for a long time. So in 1986, I thought, I'll just go to Oxford. They wouldn't let me go in for free, but I could certainly go myself. So I did at Wadsworth College. And St. Hilda's College, I discovered while I was there, had a mystery writing conference because Val McDermott went there, and P.D. James was kind of an ornament from it. So Laurie and I, in the early 1990s, both arrived at St. Hilda's College for the conference. And I said to her, my one dream of being at Oxford, being in a punt going up the river, lolling back on pillows while, somebody pulled the punt and, up the Chair River and all that's part of the Oxford legend, will never happen to me. I didn't need to because Laurie said, we can do that. So I arranged to meet Laurie down at the boat dock. And Noel, who was notably eccentric, I thought he was the dust man. I thought he'd come right out of My Fair Lady when he was standing there on the dock. Sorry, Laurie, if you're watching this, but it's true. I was so surprised because he's like an eminent world-famous professor. And here he was, in his knit cap and his old whatever. He didn't go in the punt with us. It was just Laurie and me and a bottle of champagne. It was great.
You know how to party.
I know. But anyway, I know.
So several people want to know, Jeffrey, is this your last Inspector Caldas, or do you want to continue on and with the series?
I can understand that this being the 14th book, and it's titled Not Dead Yet, that people might think this is meant to be my farewell song. It ain't so. No, I'm working on 15 now. I understand, as I said earlier, that the film rights are proceeding at a great risk pace. I have a new book coming out with a new series, which is going to continue as well. And I have no intention of giving up.
The people online also want to know, what are your top 5 locations in Greece where everybody should visit? And maybe some that maybe are a little under the radar.
Under the radar places in Greece that you should visit. Interesting subject. It really would be some of the islands. So many of the islands now have been discovered. It's really a difficult thing to do. But
I vote for Patmos.
Oh, Patmos is enchanting. It is an island they call it the Holy Island. The church, I think it has the second wealthiest cathedral church in Christendom.
This is the St. John the Baptist one, right?
Oh, yeah,
Or
that's
not
St. John.
St.
No,
John
not
the
the
Baptist.
Baptist.
No.
That's where
the
St.
other
John
St.
wrote the Book of Revelation. And it has a lot going there. I think Patmos is an interesting place to see. If you want to get the buzz of what Greece is about these days, you've got Mykonos and Santorini. I'm just saying you have them, but they're what they sound like. One is a party island, which is a great thing to do. The other is a beautiful vistas. It may not be for everybody. It's costly. But you have so many other islands out there.
Yeah, but what about the monasteries? Sorry.
Meteoro. I was just going to say that. Meteoro is magnificent. you have these spires of rock going straight up into the sky, and on top you have these cathedrals, these monasteries. It's amazing. And the story that I heard back in the old day, that when you were seeking to find a way to get up there, you had to get in a basket. They pulled you up in a basket. The monks would pull you up in a basket. And the way they could tell that they had to replace the ropes was when a basket fell. I'm not so sure that's exactly the transportation I want to take. But that was the story I was told. And you go out in northern Greece, you get so many vistas, so many views. I know I'm not answering this question cogently, but it's hard to say what I would describe it. Olympia, Delphi. Delphi is another place. There's a spiritual feeling there. And that feeling is one that here I can see why they chose to communicate with the gods. You stand up there, and there's just something about this place that can make you believe that there was an oracle here. That's one place. You have Delos, which is right off of Mykonos. Delos is a place which has the same feeling to it. It was a thriving community until they backed the wrong ruler, and everyone was either enslaved or tortured or done away with. Beyond that, I would have to sit down and go over my own little itinerary to see which other places I would recommend.
Thank you,
You.
Patrick. Right. So, anybody here have a final? Did I see a hand over there reflexively from you? Yeah. And Laurie R. King will be launching her new book here on Saturday, September 7th, with her friend Leslie Klinger. That's right. Both of them together, right? So do come.
My favorite writer is Cormac McCarthy. The way he paints. Oh no! I have a lot of really great mystery writers, but I'm not about to start picking people. I write a blog every Saturday for the last 15 years called "On Murders Everywhere," and with that are a group of 9 writers from around the world who don't write about their books; they write about the places and how they came that way. Some of these writers you would know their names. Then there's those who are alumni, same way. So what I say is the Murders Everywhere writers are the good ones. Really like them. My favorite writer, though, is Cormac McCarthy. He has in one of his books, he has a villain called the Judge. Man alive, he's probably the best villain I've ever seen. But reading his book, the early books, is like eating a very rich chocolate cake. You can't do it at one sitting. But that's my favorite guy. Yes. Calamari. Well, the author of that book, he and I were picked by the New York Times to have our books being books for the summer. It was Targetinos was mine. And so I have a real camaraderie with him and with that whole situation. But I always feel that way, that there's so many great writers out there. There really are.
Inspector Montalbano made some of the best television ever.
Yes.
I know. I've watched the whole thing, and the young Montalbano and the whole bit. I think we've watched the entire series maybe 3 different times. It's set in Sicily. And we're going there in May from France. We're taking a cruise on a French cruise ship. We're going to pretend we're Canadians. And we're going to, I'm serious, I have a Canadian author sending me Canadian luggage stickers and little pins. If anybody challenges me, I'm going to say we're practicing to be Canadians. But anyway, it goes from Nice and it goes down Italy to the Amalfi Coast. I'm going to get to go to Herculaneum, been to Pompeii, but never Herculaneum. And then we're going to Sicily for a bit, and then we're coming back up through Sardinia and Corsica. And we're going to jump ship in Marseille because I want to go to Carcassonne and Avignon and Arles and all that. So it's going to be a great month.
It sounds a great month. And you're going to some places, my favorite places, the Amalfi Coast, and you go up there, you go to Capri, you go to
Right. No, I did all that
I know you
years
did.
ago.
I'm just
But,
talking about the cruise, which way
Right.
it goes.
but I would not probably have been as interested in going to Sicily if I hadn't read all the Montalbanos and watched the television, because it really is just
I
amazing.
wonder what your impression will be of Corsica.
Well, we'll find out. I don't expect Napoleon to leap out from a bush,
No,
but
there's
actually, I think Sardinia is going to be even more interesting than Corsica. Because some of the they're trying to give away houses and villages in Sardinia to Americans who would like to immigrate.
well, I can't remember the names of them, but there are different towns. A friend of mine who had a hotel in Capri had a house up there, and where the main part of Capri, main part of Sardinia, what it does is it caters to super rich. You go south. There's some amazing places down there. Amazing places. You wind your way up into the woods. We can talk later about it.
Well, I don't know how much you can see in a day. If you're on a cruise, you don't get
Oh, that's
a
true.
huge amount
That's
of
true.
time. You
That's
just
true.
get kind of a survey of it. But I'm really looking forward to
It's a
seeing
great
both.
tour. It's
Right.
great.
Well, you guys have been really patient. It's hard to sit in these chairs for more than 45 or 50 minutes. So thank you very much for coming this afternoon. Let's give Jeffrey a round of applause.
Thank all of you. It's a pleasure having dedicated people here. Thank you.
Virtual audience, thank you for joining us. If you'd like to buy a book and get your book signed or chat with Jeffrey or take a photo, he can stay right there and I'll go get him a pen. How about that? Right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.